Hello and welcome to How to Nail Your First 50 Pages with me, Leila Dewji from I Am Self-Publishing. I'm really excited to be invited back to the Ally Indie Author Fringe Festival for the second year running. I think it's an absolutely fantastic event and I hope you're learning lots and lots today. I'm going to be covering quite a lot in a relatively short session, but don't worry, I've typed up my notes and they're over on our blog, which is iamselfpublishing.com/blog. So if you miss anything or you want to recap, just head over there and you'll see all of the notes. So today I'm going to be focusing on why it's so important to get your first 50 pages right, why it can be quite a difficult thing to achieve. I'm going to be sharing a secret trick to help you improve every time, and if you stay on till the end, I'll also be going through an opening chapter audit. This is a series of questions you can use to evaluate and improve your opening chapters today. So let's get started. To give you a bit of background, I've always been a book geek. I was one of those kids at school who would finish the book trail, which the local librarians put on to keep kids quiet in the summer holidays, within about the first week and be begging for more books. This naturally led to reading English at Christ Church College, Oxford, which is pretty much Hogwarts. It's where they filmed a lot of the Harry Potter series. So I think that's quite cool that I can say I got the basis of my editorial training in Hogwarts itself. After I left Oxford, I worked for a couple of big trade publishers, Scholastic and Hachette, before moving to a literary agency. I left the agency in 2011 because at that time I became very frustrated that I had been nurturing and developing lots of talented debut authors that were ultimately just getting rejected from the big publishers. There didn't seem to be any appetite for them, and those authors weren't really given much of a chance. So I wanted to create a professional route to market for those authors to really replicate what would happen in a traditional publishing company in terms of editing, design, production, marketing, everything, so that those authors that I knew were talented could have a really good shot. So that gives you a little bit of idea of where I'm coming from. Both at the publishing companies and at the literary agency, one of the things I had to do was read through the slush pile. Now, this is a bit of a derogatory term for what they actually call unsolicited manuscripts, which is also not a very nice term, come to think of it. But basically, it means all the manuscripts that authors have sent in without being asked to do so. So you get piles and piles of manuscripts from all genres, from random authors all over the world coming to your desk every single day. And it can be quite overwhelming. I remember we had manuscripts stacked up precariously on the top of filing cabinets, shelf after shelf, piles of them on the floor, which you'd worry about taking corners too tightly just in case you knocked them all over. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the problem. And when a publisher or an agent is reading through these manuscripts, basically they're looking to fast track things to the recycling bin. They're looking for a reason to say no rather than a reason to say yes. So those opening chapters, those first few pages, have to fight really, really hard for the attention of whoever's reading it, whether that is just a reader, whether it's an agent, whether it's a publisher. Because if you don't grab them in that first moment, in those first few pages, it's very unlikely they're going to read on. So since then, I've helped lots of authors sharpen up their opening chapters, and I'm passionate about this because it really makes a difference to the overall success of the book. Having those chapters right is something that can really open doors for the author, but if they're not right, it's something that can close those doors. So I love seeing authors really grow and improve, and with a little bit of help and guidance, writing something that is actually going to be much more engaging. So hopefully in today's session, I'll be able to help you too in some small way. So why is it so important to get these opening chapters right? Well, the main reason is attention spans. I think we might have actually been overtaken by goldfish now. The human attention span is so short and seems to be decreasing all the time. So you need a really punchy opening full of energy and excitement, because people just don't have the time or the patience for a slow burner. They'll simply stop reading if you don't engage them now in this opening section. They might never read on. They'll never find out how good your chapter 10 is, or some brilliant plot twist you've got up your sleeve for the end of the book. They'll just put your book down and move on. So you really do need to grab them in this opening section. You can't take readers' time or loyalty for granted. You're not only competing with other authors, you're competing with every other form of entertainment available to them at that moment. So I've put the Apple Watch up here because you can see a watch isn't a watch anymore. A watch has got loads of entertainment options, and the iPad or the Kindle has just got the same thing too. There was a lot of talk about this when I worked for Orion, part of Hachette, as people were starting to realise that ebooks weren't only competing against other ebooks on a particular device. They'd be competing against Netflix, Spotify, social media, Candy Crush, all sorts of things. So you really need to make sure that you've got a sharp focus in those opening chapters so your readers aren't tempted to start tapping on other apps. Another really important factor is the Kindle download, the free Kindle sample that you can get. Right now on Amazon, you can get the first few chapters of millions of books sent to your device in seconds for free. Just think about that for a moment. That is a lot of competition. So I often download a few different samples of books that people have recommended or look good onto my Kindle, then pick a winner. So competition is high. I'm choosing my book, I'm making my purchase decision based solely on which of those samples I enjoyed the most. And I'm not the only one that does this. A lot of people do, and it may sound silly, especially when the books are so cheap, $1.99, $2.99, maybe $3.99. But it's not really about the price, it's about my time. I don't have as much time as I would like to spend reading, and I want to make sure the time I do have is spent on the best books possible. And a lot of other people think like this too. So you have a very small window to pitch to them in that sample that they'll download for free on Kindle, and you need to keep it tight. You need to make sure that you're the winner, you're the one they pick out of any other samples they may have downloaded. At the business end of things, which I alluded to earlier, agents, publishers, reviewers, bloggers, bookstore managers, literary festivals, all of those sorts of people get lots and lots of submissions. They're pitched to a lot. And if you don't hit them hard with something nice and punchy, they're really just going to move on and pick up one of the other books that they've probably been sent that day. The good news is, the more you manage to get readers invested in your book, the more likely they are to read on. So if you can persuade them to read a chapter, they'll probably read 2. But if you can persuade them to read 3, they'll probably read 6. If you can persuade them to read 5, they'll probably read 12. So you can see that this graph does curve upwards slightly. So the more you can get them on board, the more likely they are to stay with you. So why is it so hard to get those opening chapters right? Well, the biggest issue is you haven't found your voice yet, and it all feels a bit hesitant and unsure. I've seen this in so many manuscripts. It may be your first novel and you're just taking tentative steps. It may be that you're trying a few things out and you haven't really settled yet. You haven't kind of got into your rhythm, your comfortable pattern, your groove. You don't really know where you're going with it, and that's coming across to the reader, and they're not really sure whether or not they should spend time following you. In my experience of working with lots of different authors across a range of genre, from commercial to more literary things, is they improve as they write. The writing process takes months or maybe even years, and they're just not the same author when they finish their final draft as they were when they wrote their first line. Along the way, they've grown, developed their craft, probably changed their minds about things and changed them back several thousand times, and learnt a lot along the way. There's been trial, there's been error, there's been improvement, all sorts of things. So this actually means that the opening chapters can be the weakest by quite some way. Now, that's absolutely normal. If you're listening and you're thinking that you might be guilty of some of these things, that's fine. But all it means is that when you get to the end of your book, you do need to go back to the beginning and make sure they're the same high standard that you've achieved elsewhere in your manuscript. Something else that often holds a lot of authors back, especially at the beginning, is fear of the blank page. Nowhere is this fear felt more keenly than in the opening chapter. You know it's really important to get everything right, to set things up properly, and you don't want to make a false move. And this can actually limit your creativity quite substantially. Another issue I've come across with authors is them trying way too hard. Now, I know this is an easy trap to fall into. You start to compare yourself to the greats who've composed the most beautiful opening lines, and you want to do the same yourself. But the thing is that any true professional makes something incredibly difficult look easy, whether it's Federer serving or Paul Hollywood making a croissant. But amateurs can make it look really hard, and to a spectator or a reader it looks artificial and forced, like they're trying too hard to be clever. So in this opening section, you really do need to kill your darlings. Anything that distracts from the content, just get rid of. It doesn't have a right to be there. So now I'm going to share with you the number one secret that's going to revolutionise the way you think about your opening chapters, whether you're writing them for the first time or whether you're going back to edit and improve them. You need to think like a TV or movie director. Think about it, the director is in charge of absolutely everything, the whole audience experience, from the setting, the pace, the action, the tone, costume, absolutely everything. And it's all about storytelling. Film and TV uses far fewer words to tell the same story, but all media has the same function: to engage the audience, to make them want to care what happens next, to have a beginning, a middle and end, and lots of entertaining plot twists along the way. I met an ally author recently who had a background in film. We were chatting about his debut novel, but he'd actually been writing film scripts all his life. He told me that the average film script is only 10 to 20,000 words. Just think about that for a moment. Think about just how much would have to be cut in any film or TV adaptation. About 80% of the book just gone in a flash. There's no room for fluff. Everything that's kept has to have a specific plot function. They cut away everything other than the very essence of the story. So next time you go to the movies and watch an adaptation of a book and you think the book's better, just remember that the book had that extra 80%. Your opening chapter is the little tidbit that's dangled in front of the reader for them to desperately grab. I've heard the first chapter described as bait to hook the reader in, and you need to make sure you're doing that just as much as a TV or film needs to make sure it's doing that in the first few moments. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever turned on to a TV show that you were looking forward to and then switched over to another channel after 5 minutes or so? Maybe you were generous and gave it a chance till the advert break. Or maybe you found yourself picking up your phone, checking social media, putting the kettle on, and before you knew it, you just weren't engaged at all and you wanted to switch off and watch something else. It doesn't matter how good the rest of that episode was going to be or how great that series would develop to be, because you're dead to that series and that series is dead to you. You have disengaged completely and you're very unlikely to watch another episode. A good example of this is The Nightly Show, which is a new show that they've just started. It's kind of like a talk show, but it's not really done that well. It started with David Walliams in a pretty empty theatre, and the whole thing just didn't work. The venue was not right, the stars that he got on weren't big enough, they had nothing current to promote, and it was universally panned on Gogglebox, which is a pretty diverse cross-section of society. So you only have that first moment, that first episode, those first opening chapters to really get the audience on side, and if you miss your moment then, they're very unlikely to give you another chance. And the same thing could be happening with your book. Who here is guilty of having books on their shelves that they haven't got round to finishing? Something where starting a new book seemed like a better idea than finishing an old one. This happened to me with The Secret Speech by Tom Rob Smith. I love Child 44 and read it really quickly, but his follow-up book just wasn't as good. I was a disengaged reader, which is pretty much the worst thing you can have as an author, and I'm definitely not going to buy any more of his books. Now I'm going to show you how you can start to think like a TV director. There's a sneaky trick that more and more TV dramas are using. From Sherlock to Taboo, everyone seems to be at it. There's often a little bit before the music starts, before the credits, before the programme actually starts, where they just chuck you in the middle of an exciting scene for a few minutes. There's no explanation of who everyone is, why they're doing what they're doing or where they are. You're just chucked in there. Then we have the titles, and then a few minutes after that, the story will unravel as normal. So the reason directors do this is to make sure the audience is really hungry and on board before the programme has even started. This little snippet has two jobs, which is the same two jobs that your opening chapter has. One, to get you invested in the characters and caring about what happens to them, and two, to give you an urgent need to find out what happens next. I've got my popcorn and I'm ready to show you a couple of extracts from fantastic dramas. The first one is an American drama called The Blacklist, and the second one is a British drama called Line of Duty. I'm going to be playing them back to back now.
I'm here to see Assistant Director Harold Cooper. Tell him it's Raymond Reddington.
really is him. What does he want?
You must have many questions. So let's begin with the most important one. Why I'm here.
So what did you think of that sample of Blacklist? US dramas are so good at creating a lot of energy and tension. This has got the audience invested in the characters and given them a head full of questions. Why is he the most wanted man? Why is he back? Are they going to kill the protagonist before the opening scenes even started? Do you want to know what happens next? Hell yeah! If we drill down further, we can see we've got an exciting location, dangerous and intriguing characters that we want to learn more about, a whole heap of dramatic tension and energy, and a really crazy setup, the world's most wanted man turning himself in. The tone of the dialogue and the man's actions is calm, collected, cool, and pretty slick, which gives us the impression that this guy is really running the show, even though he's the prey, not the hunter. All of this results in making the audience desperate to keep watching. And here's the next one, the BBC drama Line of Duty.
Okay, thank you. Operation Damson is an ongoing initiative aimed at detection/prevention of gangland murders. Surveillance of a suspect under Operation Damson has been in place at an address for less than 24 hours, with intelligence sources indicating a significant belief the suspect is preparing to commit a gangland execution. The suspect is a known criminal with a history of violence, is expected to be armed, and is designated extremely dangerous. Senior AFO is Inspector McAndrew.
Sir?
You'll operate out of 4 vehicles, each crew to be positioned on the suspect's possible routes of travel, awaiting goal commander's orders to intercept. Crew assignments are as follows. Victor Charlie 40, McAndrew.
Sir?
Lambert.
Sir.
Chapel.
Sir.
Miller.
Sir?
Victor Charlie 50, Waldron.
Sir.
You will each sign that you understand the law regarding the legal use of force as outlined by the SFC. You'll each sign out your weapon. You'll each sign out the type of ammunition and the number of rounds.
And what about Line of Duty? Has this got you invested in the characters? Yes, there's obviously something going on with one of the policemen, and we want to know more about this gang leader. Do you want to know what happens next? Yes, there's a strong sense of crescendo. Something big is about to happen, a gangland execution. The police are getting prepared for it. Something big is about to take place. And if we have a closer look at this, what we've got is an exciting cast of characters, specialist police, an awful baddie, guns, a speech from a leader which fills us in on the Operation Damson, and the sense that something huge is about to kick off. So what can we learn from TV dramas to help us write better opening chapters? Firstly, lead with dialogue. This is about showing rather than telling. The Line of Duty extract does this particularly well. We've actually got a monologue from one commander and then another, basically setting the whole thing up, explaining to us what's going to happen and how. Have a clear focus on just one character. You've got to be selective, because at this stage the reader has no idea what's going on, where they are, so don't confuse them with too much going on with too many people. Blacklist is a good example of this because it's all about one guy. We've got a very sharp focus on just one character who we know absolutely nothing about, and that's what makes it interesting. Cut the background story. Again, if we look at Blacklist, we have no idea what that guy did, why or when to get blacklisted. We don't even know why he's back now. Instead, they focus 100% on the action, and that makes it really engaging. Cut as much as you can. It kind of goes without saying by this stage, but try and keep the word count as low as you can get away with. Leave the audience or reader with a head full of questions. You want them to be asking what, why, when, how. A Blacklist is a great example of this because you're on the edge of your seat gasping with surprise, basically. You really want to know what happens next. So the more questions you can give the reader, the more likely they are to stay on or read on rather, and wait until they find out the answers. And I just want to recap on the two most important jobs of your opening chapters and the opening scenes to any show, which is 1, to get you invested in the characters and caring about what happens to them, and 2, to give you an urgent need to find out what happens next. So now I want to show you how this actually works in action. The first example I'm going to be showing you is a book called Even Dogs in the Wild, which is the latest Ian Rankin book, and it's part of the John Rebus series. Now, Ian Rankin is a very commercial author. He is a kind of author that can get you so engrossed in a book that you will miss your stop and stay on the train or stay on the bus or whatever. So he's very good at engaging the audience, engaging the reader, and really just grabbing their attention and making them want to read on. So I'm going to read a quick section now. It's not even the whole page, probably about half the opening page, and I recommend you head over to Amazon and download the free Kindle samples so you can have a proper look and see what I mean. Free Kindle samples are a great way to research your novel. Okay, so here we go with the prologue. Eventually, the passenger ejected the tape and tossed it onto the back seat. That was the associates, the driver complained. Well, they can go associate somewhere else. Singer sounds like his balls have been trapped in a vice. The driver thought about this for a moment, then smiled. Remember, we did that to... what was his name again? The passenger shrugged. He owed the boss money. That's what mattered. Wasn't a lot of money, though, was it? How much further? The passenger peered through the windscreen. 1/2 a mile. These woods have seen some action, eh? The passenger made no comment. It was dark out there, and they'd not encountered another car for the last 5 or so miles. Fife countryside, inland from the coast. The fields shorn and awaiting winter. A pig farm not too far away, one they'd used before. What's the plan? The driver asked. Just the one shovel, so we toss to see who breaks sweat. Strip off his clothes and burn them later. He's only wearing pants and a vest. No tattoos or rings that I saw. Nothing we need to cut off. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, but you can see that was a really action-packed opening scene. If we drill down further, you can see that we actually got a lot of dialogue. We got characterization. We learnt that these guys have done it before and have a boss that gives them dangerous instructions. There was actually quite a lot of danger referred to with the stripping, the burning, the tattoo removal. There's a lot of tension because the guys are in a car and they're on their way to go and do something. This is building up to an act, probably a burial or something like that, but you get the impression that something is about to happen and you need to stay tuned to find out what that is. And although we're not given much in the way of names, we are given the location. So you can see in just 1/2 a page of the opening sequence, we've actually been given dialogue, characterization, danger, tension, and the location. He's really packed a lot into that opening sequence. For those of you watching and thinking that starting with a really highly charged action scene is not going to work for your style of writing, then I want to show you how this can work for starting with point of view. I'm going to read a very quick extract, 1/2 of the first page of Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there have already read this or maybe even watched the film, but if you haven't, then do head over to Amazon and download a free Kindle sample so that you can start to analyse just how Gillian Flynn manages to get such a lot of psychological intrigue packed into her opening pages. Okay, so I'm going to start now, and this is in the voice of Nick Dunn, who is actually the main character's husband. When I think of my wife, I always think of her head. The shape of it, to begin with. The first time I saw her, it was the back of her head I saw, and there was something lovely about it, the angles of it, like a shiny, hard corn kernel or a riverbed fossil. She had what the Victorians would call a finely shaped head. You can imagine the skull quite easily. I'd know her head anywhere. And what's inside it, I think of that too, her mind, her brain, all those coils, and her thoughts shuttling through those coils like fast, frantic centipedes. Like a child, I picture opening her skull, unspooling her brain and sifting through it, trying to catch and pin down her thoughts. What are you thinking, Amy? The question I've asked most during our marriage, if not aloud, if not to the person who could answer. I suppose these questions storm-cloud over every marriage. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Who are you? What have we done to each other? What will we do? Okay, so just in that short section, only 1/2 a page, we've actually got a lot of information and intrigue from Gillian. So we've got the characterization. Actually, they've done it by presenting the main character via somebody else. And this is actually quite a neat trick. But we get the husband here giving a brutally honest, raw account of a very odd relationship. This instantly makes us want to meet Amy ourselves. I spoke before about the need to give readers questions, to have them thinking why, when, how, and the author here has actually gone one step further and planted those questions in the reader's mind. In this short section, we've got 5 whats and 4 hows, which really gets us thinking about what could happen next. This whole section is packed full of intrigue, and it's really set things up, and now we're desperate to actually meet Amy ourselves. So whatever you've written, I hope those 2 very different extracts have given you some good ideas about how to pack a bit more of a punch on your opening page. I'm now going to run through the opening chapter audit. So this is basically a series of questions to encourage you to think more critically and clinically, more like an editor really, about your own work. So the idea of these questions are that you can use them to help you evaluate what is and isn't working about your opening chapters, and then you can use that information to go back and make them even stronger. I'm going to run through the list quite quickly, and it's quite a long one, but don't worry if you can't scribble everything down, because I've typed it all up on our blog, which is www.iamselfpublishing.com/blog. So just listen to me now, and then you can use the checklist up there to work through later. Okay, firstly, does it introduce the main character and present them in a way that we can connect with? Does the reader generally care what happens to them and want to go on a journey with them? This is job number 1. If the answer to this is not a scream it from the rooftops yes, this is your first job. You need to go back and make sure we really love that character, we connect with them, we're interested in them, and we want to know what happens next to them. 2. Is it structured in such a way that you've created a sense of urgency? It's your job to make sure the reader wants to read on. Is it clear what the protagonist's goal is, what their problem is, or what they need to make happen? Now, you're probably not going to be able to fit this into the first chapter, but within the first few, you should start to set the story arc up. Getting this in early creates intrigue and dramatic tension. Is there some kind of juicy conflict set up, or at least hinted at? By the first few chapters, you should have that really evident. Is there a kind of will she, won't she consequence? Can the policeman catch the serial killer before he strikes again? Will she cheat on her husband before he gets back from his trip? Having these consequences clear really ramps up the drama. Have you set the tone? Is it clear from your first chapters what kind of storytelling experience the reader can expect? Your book needs to feel like one whole experience. If they like the opening chapters, they're going to want a lot more just like it. Often I see authors experiment with writing techniques in the opening chapters that they promptly ditch, and it just feels a bit disconnected. It's got to be smooth, so make sure you set things up how you want to go on. Are you spreading yourself too thin? Have you got too many characters and not a sharp enough focus on one central figure? Are you making it hard for the reader to take it all in? Don't forget that the reader is new to this world that you've been building in your mind for months or maybe even years. They don't have your intricate level of knowledge, so go gentle on them. There'll be plenty of time for details later. Have you got too much tell and not enough show? This is the quickest way to bore a reader. These heavy sections will encourage the reader to just close your book. Could you put more of it in dialogue? Dialogue is the fastest way of conveying information to the reader, and it also feels really exciting and immediate. Could you have started your opening scene any later? Try fast forwarding slightly and see if you can create more tension by throwing the reader into the middle of something. Are you guilty of too much scene setting or backstory? Is there any description or background information that you could cut out and put into a later chapter? Those details may be important to the overall story, but is it important to tell the reader right now? The only thing the reader really needs to know in this opening section is the where and the when. The rest can wait. And try to weave in the details gently rather than dumping huge sections of information. And finally, check your word count. Keep it short and sweet. Challenge yourself. See if you can cut it by 100 words, maybe more. You'll make a stronger impact with fewer words. This needs to be your sharpest work, so don't get complacent. See what you can do to pack more of a punch. So I hope you now realise just how important it is to get your first 50 pages in the best shape possible. You can use my checklist to improve your chapters, or perhaps I've even inspired you to have a go at writing an alternative opening to your story. I know that might sound like a crazy idea, but I've seen authors get too inflexible and a bit stuck in a rut. If you want to improve as an author, you need to be able to try new things. Just go for it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. At least you had a go. That's how you're really going to improve. It's important to be flexible and open-minded, particularly when you're working with an editor. All authors reach the stage where they get a bit too close to their work. They can't really see the wood from the trees. And this is completely normal. So if you're listening now and you're thinking that you could be guilty of being in this camp, then don't worry, it's just part of the process. All it means is that you're ready to start working with an editor. You need someone who can come in with a fresh professional perspective and give you a bit of guidance and show you what you need to do, where and how. So if you're interested in fast tracking to a better manuscript, then check out our Start Strong Manuscript Assessment Service. We've just launched this. Why? Because we've seen so many authors really struggle to get those opening chapters as strong as the rest of the book, and they've really let themselves down. We don't want that to happen to you. So let us help you put your best foot forward and make sure that your readers are engaged from the very first page. How does it work? You send us 50 pages of your manuscript and we'll put together a 6 to 10 page report detailing your strengths, weaknesses, and also giving you an action plan so you know exactly what you need to do, where, when, and how to improve your manuscript. We're giving one of these away today, so please don't forget to enter the competition below. And we're also offering all Ally members half price discount. So head over to the Ally members discount and deals page for full details of that. You'll see that it's £75 down from the usual £150. Well, goodbye. That's all from me today. I hope you've learned a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. It's Leila, Leila, at iamselfpublishing.com, or you can tweet me at iamselfpub. And don't forget, all of the notes from today are over at our blog, iamselfpublishing.com/blog. Well, have a great day and learn lots.